All right, everyone. My name is Will Padilla. I'm your host of the Sell That SaaS podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We are back with the 11th episode of the Sell That SaaS podcast. This is our new setup. So we're doing some chairs, and I thought it was a good change up from the news desk. And I'm really excited, guys, because today I'm talking with another Scottsdale local who crushes it. She is the first also female guest of the Sell That SaaS podcast.
Hi.
We needed some diversity up in here. And I am joined by my friend Amanda, and we're going to talk today about, her story as an account executive, just all that she's doing right now with owned media, her content creation on LinkedIn. So I'm super excited to have you, Amanda, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so stoked to be here. Well, I really appreciate you thinking of me, and to be the first female, right? Lucky number 11 is awesome as well. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Yeah, it's 11 episodes in, and the podcast just seems to keep growing and
Yeah.
growing, and it's slow but steady. And
It takes commitment to continue doing it because you are already so out of your comfort zone. Well, maybe you aren't, but people who start podcasts, they think, okay, I'm gonna do this and it'll be easy. And really it's not. Like it's not just getting people on, it's not just getting the amazing studio space. It's having content lined up, questions or just conversations that you want to have with people that you think they'd be really like good at contributing to. So much respect to you for going through with the podcasting and being consistent with it, because that really is the hardest part.
yeah, thank you, Amanda. I
Yeah.
I mean, you've been in AE for a while. You've been in software sales since 2019 when you first started as a founding member at Chili Piper,
Yep.
and
Yep.
now you're an account executive at Audience Plus.
Yep.
Will you just walk the audience for those who don't know you? Like, who is Amanda Bagley? How did you get into software sales? And kind of like, what are you doing today?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Who is Amanda Bagley? I'm sure my friends could offer you a better explanation of that. But I mean, first and foremost, I am a daughter, a sister, potentially the best aunt in the world, but I don't want to come for all the other aunties out there. And I am a SaaS sales professional. I did start my career in SaaS at a company. It was a scale up called CallRail. I was of the first kind of group of SDRs that they had there, but it's much different from what I've been doing over the past like 4 or 5 years because they were scale up. They had plenty of private equity funding and everything like that. So it was a really good place to kind of learn and learn from people that there was already processes and everything like that. But then I kind of was like, what's the next level to this? Because I love working in tech. I love sales, right? But I want to be a part of something, and I want to be part of like the early group of people that are just out there making it happen and building and everything. So
Hmm.
that was when it was like I leveled up. Really it was like I wanted to really roll the dice, and that's how I ended up at Chili Piper at minimum, just interested in joining like a pre-seed startup that was bootstrapped. And you don't get jobs like that on LinkedIn job listings. Like you have to know somebody. And thankfully, I knew a couple guys in Atlanta where I was at the time, and they're like, "Yo, we're gonna start building out the SDR motion. We're about to close on a seed round. We'd love for you to come join us." And at the time, I was at that company about to become an account executive, what everyone is typically vying for, right, as an SDR. And I was like, okay, do I do this now or do I hang on here and become an AE? And it just, Chili Piper and the brand and everything just really spoke to me. And I was like, let's go. So I joined Chili Piper as first official SDR, quickly moved into an AE role. And that's where I really fell in love with the art of the close, especially early stage startups, because again, you don't always have the processes in place. And we'll talk deeper into that. But then from there, right, I just stayed in the startup thing and was part of that team, growing it to 250 people, which was amazing to be a part of that. And then I decided I wanted to do it all over again. And that's kind of, I've found myself at Audience Plus as the founding account executive as we hand things over from founder led. So first boots on the ground as a sales rep, and we're having a lot of fun. It's a very kind of different type of atmosphere. We're a startup that was founded by a legendary but career marketer, which is very rare. I'm still trying to find a startup where it was like a CMO turned CEO founder,
Mm.
which with that comes all of a bunch of interesting nuances and everything to how the business is run and what we're really doing. But it's awesome.
Mm.
We're building something that's very novel, and we are having a lot of fun doing it.
Nice. And something I want, and we'll go back to, what attracts you to startups,
Yeah.
'cause I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But I think also just being candid with the Sell That SaaS audience is like, we have primarily, at least from the data, a predominantly male audience. We have about 74%
Yeah.
are of men that listen to my podcast, that follow me on TikTok. However, there's like 25% of women
Hello,
who
ladies.
follow the podcast, who message me for sales help.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know what it's like to be, a woman in sales. And I don't know if you could share insight on that. Like, how
Yeah.
different is it being a woman in software sales specifically versus, a typical man's experience?
I love this question, Will, because one of the things I always thought of was a woman in sales, right? I'm a salesperson first, like salesperson,
Yeah.
right? And I never really believed or bought into the concept of the sales bros and everything until I experienced it.
Mm.
And keep in mind, I've always been top rep, right? Top of the table, doing my thing. And in my experience, and it was kind of shocking to me at first, but then it all started adding up was, well, one thing that the guys got is they can go play golf with the VP on the weekends,
Mm.
right? They have that different camaraderie where you just don't have it. Majority of VPs of sales are also males. And so that was something when I first experienced it, I was kind of like, whoa, that really is a thing. They have a boys club, right? But one organization that I have to call out that was really helpful for me, not just finding a home, finding a place where I could have that camaraderie, but also helping me and motivating me and really inspiring me to take the path of leadership.
Mm.
Because to be honest, being a top rep doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be a manager. And when I got tapped for leadership, I was kind of like, I don't know. I kind of like this being able to manage my own business, like my performance, my pipeline, my bag. At the end of the day, my success isn't going to be determined by somebody else's work ethic. But on the other hand, it was like, well, you are already stepping into the role of a leader. You're
Mm.
already helping onboarding, like with onboarding people. You're already that person that we look to is always super helpful. And we'd love to make that official. But and we talk about the concept of feeling like you're an imposter, and it's real, and everyone this isn't imposter syndrome is not only for women, or everyone can experience it. But for me it was, are the guys really going to take me seriously as their
Mm.
manager? Like that was a real thing. I was like, I don't know if I can do it, because I don't know if anyone
Mm.
will, I don't want to say respect me, but will they look to me as somebody who's going to not have the authority or anything like that. So I found an organization called #GirlsClub,
Mm.
and it's this amazing mentor cohort where it's specifically for the girls club,
Yeah.
women in sales, and you get matched up with a mentor. It's a whole learning and training program, and it's a community that I will always have access to.
Mm.
It was founded by Lauren Bailey, aka LB, and she's actually local
She
here.
is?
Yeah, which is amazing. There's something about this Phoenix area, which I moved here for the role at Audience Plus, and it's all coming together. I don't know if I can share this yet, but we got Morgan J. Ingram as a local
Yeah.
here now. You just moved here, so I think there's something really magic happening here in the Valley. And yeah, Girls Club was founded by LB, and it's just amazing to have that community and that space where we do talk about it. There is a boys club. There are sales bros and everything, and it's not like we're out here to villainize the guys or anything like that. We just want to give a space for the girls that are doing it, that the girls that are killing it, to also be inspired and motivated to go into leadership and all of that. So kind of going back to your question, my experience as a female in sales, I think it's very consistent with people that are watching this. But for people that have that, maybe they're not they don't feel as confident going into leadership, there are spaces for you. You can also hit me up. I'll tell you about my experience. But I am an IC again, and that's a
Yeah.
whole nother thing we can talk about. But I also love being an independent contributor and going back down and doing it all over again.
Yeah, that's a great take. And again, I just love learning about, I mean, some of the best reps I've ever worked with and that have reported to me as my SDR have been women.
Yeah,
And they're absolute killers.
love
Like
it.
it's like the way that they operate and the way that I think, in my opinion, I think women are just more, they have more empathy and they can almost, they
Yes.
have, I'm just,
No, it's
this isn't
that's
taking
real.
a shot
I
at
think
men, but I
no,
think,
it's not. But I feel like that's something. The connection. I've stood side by side with. That'll be a good B-roll. I've stood side by side with other top performing dudes, right? And it was like, what when we watch our calls, what is the difference?
yeah.
And for me, a lot of it was not just empathy, but being able to kind of have that feeling of like you're creating this relationship and just maybe more warmth. I don't know.
Yeah, they have good women have good intuition too,
That too. Yes,
and
that too.
discernment. So that's always a plus of working with them. And in regards to your role now as an
Hmm.
account executive, it seems that you are attracted to startups.
Yep.
So we have a lot of listeners. Some, like I'll get messages from young reps at Salesforce or Okta or like, these really big
Hmm.
SaaS companies. But then I'll get a lot of messages from, well, I just started at a startup. There's like no processes in place. Help
Yeah.
me, please.
Yeah.
And so why startups for you?
Well, I'll get into something a little personal, but my dad worked in tech startups for 30 years.
Really?
Yeah. First, working specifically in barcode reading technology. So, very cutting edge. If you can imagine in the 80s, the concept of a barcode being on something and there being a scanner was totally new. And my dad was first sales rep in selling that type of technology. So I think a lot of it is I am inspired with carrying on his legacy in a way. But it's got to come down to that high risk, high reward feeling. And also knowing that I'm a part of something right now and the input that I put in now could it could build and have that compound interest of something huge.
Mm,
And yeah, if I shuffled into Okta or one of these larger companies, like I had an opportunity at Deal to kind of shuffle in
it's a
as
huge
yeah,
company.
huge company, shuffle in as a sales manager. But here's my problem with that is all the processes are in place.
Mm,
There's no opportunity for me to come in and really make suggestions and really have any impact on change or anything. And I also am aware of who I am and my personality. And I wouldn't want to come in and rock the boat. I'd rather build it.
mm,
So that's why I am attracted to startups, just starting out on the ground floor, being a part of the team where things are going to evolve and things can get shaky. I would be interested in talking to the reps that have reached out to you about there not being processes. Like I would love to be a resource to any sales rep who finds themselves at a startup, but you also really have to consider if that's where you want to be
mm,
because it's not for everyone. In fact, if you are a sales rep and you've had experience and you've had success as a sales rep, maybe at other more like at other organizations that have structure and processes and a strong product and everything like that, you might not necessarily be cut out for startup sales
mm,
because you've got to be ready, one, to take that risk, right? To be able to accept that things are going to be tumultuous, that there's going to be points in time where things are shaky from every single angle. Things are looking shaky with product. Things are looking shaky with marketing. Things are looking shaky with customers churning and all of that. So as a sales rep, you've got to be ready to be 10 toes down, no matter how bad it gets. And as a founder, those are the people you're looking for, and they're super rare. So if you find someone like that, you know that they're going to be in for the long run, and there's nothing that phases them. And also building a team around you where we're all taking L's. We miss a pipeline goal in a quarter, we miss a sales goal, we lose a couple really critical customers. We're a small team and we're all taking the L together and just coming back from it the best way we can.
Okay. So it sounds like what draws you to startups is the ability to make an impact, have a voice, say something, then actually see it change.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And then also have a team that's there to be with you kind of through thick and thin.
Thick and thin,
As
man. Feast or famine. And having worked in startups for so long, and specifically in sales, right? Because as sales reps, we're looking at that commission check. And
yeah.
a startup might not always be able to guarantee that that's coming, right?
Mm,
And so I've seen feast and famine, or I'd say famine, then feast, then famine again.
yeah.
And you have to be willing to stick through it. And through every single one of those, maybe you think of it as a mistake or missteps or failures, you learn something that is so valuable.
Mm,
So I also like to think of myself as a cowboy. I know you had Keegan on here, so don't worry, I'm
yeah.
not going to steal
Software.
your cowboy brand by any means. But I was having a conversation with my founder like a month and a half ago, and he was like, yeah, I was talking to someone and they're like, who would ever want to be the first sales rep at a startup?
Scary.
And I took a second to really think about it, and I'm always trying to look for metaphors, right? And I was like, I guess I'm kind of like a cowboy, you know? Like I'm in it, but if things don't work out, I'll find the next cattle drive to
Yeah.
jump on, right? Because I know the skills I have. I know the knowledge that I've gained from doing this. And I know it'll be valuable anywhere I go. And more importantly, I know where I go is going to be successful because I'm there.
Mm. Yeah, and one thing about you, Amanda, that I knew from the jump was you're very passionate
Oh yeah.
about what you do,
Yep.
and you're a promoter. Like that was one of the reasons I was excited to have you on, is
Yeah.
because you promote your company. I mean, your employer's lucky to have you because, uh,
Do you hear that?
yeah, Audience Plus, if you're listening, that yeah, because you promote the heck out of them, just but not even like forced. You're just genuinely happy to be there and
Yeah.
genuinely happy to make an impact. And then also your LinkedIn content, like seeing your weekly updates, seeing like you're putting yourself out there, you're doing these things that are Amanda Bagley's brand, but also mixed with Audience Plus's brand.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of good things going on. And I think for the audience now, like I don't know, maybe you could touch on just what Audience Plus does,
Yeah.
what is owned media,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of B2B companies who are trying to do content right now. They're trying to do influencer marketing. They're
Right.
trying to
Trying.
they're just trying to get their name out there, and and the best way to do so is through content.
Right.
So how does Audience Plus help that, and like what is owned media?
Yeah. So we'll start with own media because the concept and everything is
Yeah. Like, I
why
don't even know what owned
Audience
media
Plus is
is.
here. Well, own media at its simplest definition is anywhere where a brand has presence that they own. So this could be a website, right? We're keeping it really simple, right? Your website, any content that you put on your website, you own. You own that space. So you have owned, but then we have earned. So earned media is on social
Mhm.
media, right? You have followers that you've earned, people that engage and follow your content, and then from there you have people that aren't yet following you on social media. So you've got to put in the work with the content and everything to gain followers. But since this is a social media platform, you are renting space there, right? I know we are all struggling with the LinkedIn algorithm right now. I don't know what happened because I was doing pretty well with impressions and gaining new followers and everything like that. And then just like that, they can change the game. So we say that's rented land, right?
Okay,
You
it's
are
rented.
beholden to the algorithm to gain or earn new followers, right? So then we have the next level of owned media. So of course this is your website, anywhere that the access to your audience, there isn't some kind of wall that is an algorithm or something like that. A really good example of owned media is newsletters. And I saw that you were talking about starting a newsletter. And what I loved,
did.
Will,
I
you
need
just
help.
did. But what I love is, yes, you're looking for help with your newsletter,
yeah.
which I think is awesome. I love anybody who's like going to go into something and learn everything they can about it. So a newsletter is a great example of owning your audience. You think of The Hustle. HubSpot acquired The Hustle for $25 million.
What?
And they had only been around for 5 years. Yeah, this is a newsletter, a media brand, right? And HubSpot thought, okay, they've already got this huge database of people. We're just going to acquire them. Another really good example, and an example that's near and dear to my heart, was when Outreach acquired Sales Hacker. Right? So like Max had built this huge database of people that were following the content, trying to get better at sales. I am still to this day like Sales Hacker stan, right? Outreach acquired them. And then the best part about that story is not too long ago, GTM now, which it was previously Sales Hacker, right, is like, you know, what Max and them are doing now, reacquired Sales Hacker. And that just shows the value of what essentially is a database of people who have offered their first party data to be receiving your newsletter or something like that. So you own that audience. So what Audience Plus is, right, is we're an own media platform, but specifically the product is one, making it super easy for content teams to be able to publish multimedia content. Now, someone could say, why don't you just use WordPress or Webflow, right? Embed a YouTube video, or even more advanced, right? Embed a Vimeo video or something like that. Have somewhere where you could fill out a form and receive a gated piece of content. But even with the most developer resources or utilizing a web agency or something like that, it's still really difficult, right? We're talking about just being able to have a web surface with a video next to something written, next to an audio, whatever, right? And even with all the resources, it's still never going to look like how you want. And more importantly, you're not going to be able to measure the impact it's actually having on any bottom line, on any pipeline influence or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, this is an organic strategy. We want to bring people to the blog, for example, maybe through an organic Google search, so we can measure how many people landed on the website after we published a blog. We can see that maybe the high intent call to action form submissions went up. But unless we ask, we can't directly attribute it to that blog or even to a podcast. So on one side of it, Audience Plus is a no-code CMS, making it super easy for content and marketing teams to operate independently of any developer or web design agency resources. And then we're also making it so you can capture subscribers and then be able to understand their behavior on that beautiful media property that you've built. So we're kind of looking at it as no-code CMS mixed with Substack or Beehive mixed with marketing attribution software. So if you are familiar with brands like Lavender, what they've built, Lavenderland, is on Audience Plus. That's the one that comes up really often.
Wow.
Yeah.
You could have clipped. I mean, you're going to clip so many of those.
Yeah.
What you just said.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is clip this and then just put it on.
Yeah.
Like,
there's my demo.
Like, what is Audience Plus? I talked about it on a podcast. Actually, watch this video. And
yeah, exactly. That's what
you should have it on your company's website.
Right. Exactly. But but we're also, and to go to the other part of your question, why are content team or teams that are doing content driven strategies going to win? I think that was one thing that we talked about. And it is also, we're trying to change the mindset of what digital marketing looks like today.
Okay.
Because we've all been running the same playbook that John Miller actually wrote on, inbound marketing, right? Do everything you can to get them to your website and then to get them to raise their hand and fill out a request a demo form. And how do we do that? Through paid ads, through, organic searches, trying to learn that algorithm that they change. I think Google changes their algorithm 600 times a year. How can you possibly be able to strategize your content schedule and everything around that if it's constantly changing? So companies, brands that are focused on content, creating fans around their brand and their thought leadership are going to win, because at the end of the day, only 5% of your tangible market is in market to purchase. And you and all your competitors are playing whack-a-mole just to get their attention, right? But what about the 95%? People that aren't necessarily in market, maybe they're stuck in a contract for another year, but that doesn't mean they might not be interested in exploring other solutions. So how can we influence them just like we do in B2C? We're influenced all the time to buy things. Sometimes I like, it was a one-click close for one of these influencers because they posted something that was interesting. I went to the website. I was like, I really like this shirt or whatever. And I bought it because I was influenced by it. So why can't we do that in B2B for people? I wasn't in market to buy this t-shirt, but I was influenced. So why don't we look at it in B2B the same way that we experience it in B2C?
Why don't we? Literally, I'm having on in 2 episodes
Yeah.
a big influencer, someone who primarily works for some of the world's biggest brands.
Yeah.
And I'm having him on, and I'm gonna ask, so why does it seem the D2C world has totally figured out how to capture people,
Yep.
as you said, influence, go from visual, like, oh my gosh, I saw this video, to immediate purchase.
Right.
Where is that with B2B? And B2B is so far behind.
So I mean, and typically they are like 5 to 7 years behind B2C.
Yeah.
And we're coming up on that. And so
Yeah, about time.
And that's why the companies that are winning and that are going to continue to win are media driven, they're content driven, they're creating fans. I'll even talk about myself as a person.
Yeah, tell us about your content.
I have gone out and put myself out there, and with Audience Plus, this is Amanda from sales, right? I work in sales at Audience Plus, but creating a brand that people love, that people pay attention to, and maybe they're not ready to enter a commercial conversation because 95% of people that you could sell to aren't. But when they are, when somebody asks them for some kind of, on dark social, people are like, hey, what's a platform I could check out to solve this specific challenge we're having? So I'm going to say, hey, we're stuck in a contract with this specific product, but I've been paying attention to the content that this team is putting out, and they all seem really fun, or I'm learning a lot. And this doesn't have to just be for sales and MarTech type of software, right? You could have engineers that get excited about a new podcast that a company puts out. And then when it comes time to make a purchase on something, they're like, this might not even be the best solution, but we love this brand and we want to be associated with them. So going back to myself and the things that I'm doing with my content creation, to be honest, I had really been lazy about content creation until I got to Audience Plus, because everything was really ad hoc, especially when I was at Chili Piper. I'd randomly get asked to be on a webinar, or like to speak at a conference. I'd be like, oh my God, thank you. But I wasn't really consistent. But Audience Plus has given me the resources and the home and the motivation and inspiration to be consistent about creating content, and also to be myself. And I think that's one thing. I know that's one thing that people like, and I'm getting more and more attention for, is because I'm becoming more and more creative and more open, and really more and more myself, the Amanda that my friends know. And it might be cringe, right? I actually had a conversation.
I saw your video.
Yeah, it might be, it is. But hey, you know what? You could say that this is cringe, right?
Yeah.
like that we're
You
putting
could.
ourselves out.
You'd
And
be wrong.
yeah, I mean, this is cringe. Why are you guys talking about SaaS sales on a podcast? No one cares. Well, we've created an audience. Somebody cares,
Yeah.
and it is cringe. But you look at Mr. Beast or any of these huge YouTubers, they be doing some pretty cringe stuff,
Yeah.
and they're doing well. So the my motivation with creating content, even with my weekly, is kind of writing a love letter to the content teams that I would actually love to sell Audience Plus to,
Mm.
because they deserve for their work to be brought forward and showcased. Like even blogs, like I'll be like, yo, I read this blog by da 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 da, and I love this. Normally, nobody's shouting out a blog, right? But it's still content. Like work went into that, creativity went into that, and it's effectively just being written for the Google algorithm to maybe get lucky with an organic search. So that is also, you can hear how passionate I am about, talking about content creation, and also giving a home for content marketers.
Yeah. You talk a lot about the work you're doing trying to get customers for Audience Plus, but
Yeah.
like, how about for you? Are you trying to get brand deals? Like,
Oh,
what's the future of that? Like, do you think that there's a future for that of you just trying to do brand deals of your favorite brands?
that's I I didn't get a chance to catch that Sell Better Media one that you and Morgan, I
Yeah.
think
Well, I can
Morgan,
catch you
Devin,
up.
and Zoe did. But if we're talking about B2B brands, ambassadors or influencers or deals like that, because we talked about this in depth. There was a brand that was trying to get you to do it, and obviously you're not that guy to get a contract and just sign it. You actually looked at the you're like, we could redline this, but otherwise I'm not really interested in it. But going back to me, honestly, it's not something I'm actively seeking. I am, yeah, I'm not in the B2B. I probably wouldn't, because aligning myself with a specific software platform or something like that, I'm not really interested in doing that. I stand for software. Like there's software I love, SendSpark. You've
Yeah, we love
changed the game
SendSpark.
with video prospecting, and that's strictly because the UI is sick. Like you can knock that stuff out quickly. So I stand for some platforms. I wouldn't be interested in any kind of brand deals. Now in B2C, I'm actually trying to become a Crumble Cookie ambassador. So if anyone
Okay.
from Crumble Cookie is watching this, totally would do that. But I appreciate you asking me that, because I've never really thought of it.
It's a whole nother income stream.
Yeah, it's another income stream, but honestly, like I'm really focused on what we're doing at Audience Plus, and people are like, oh, you need to have work-life balance. I'm so in it right now. It's just a season,
Hmm.
it is a season
Yeah, I
right
remember
now.
talking to you. You were grinding.
Yeah, I'm still grinding, but
Still grinding.
I got you when you have that vision and everything,
Yeah.
and going back to, I know we're kind of all over the place with this conversation, but when we go back to startup sales, being the first boots on the ground, I always think of this quote from Jason Lemkin, and I say it a lot. But for the first 50 hires at a startup, you need pirates and slash or romantics. So pirates, obviously by definition, it's kind of a negative thing, right? They go in, they pillage stuff, but they are down for the mission, right? They'll
Hmm.
go whatever it takes. And then romantics, because I've got to be so passionate about what I do, especially at the end of the day when there's a lot of uncertainty. You've got to drink the Kool-Aid, you got to see the vision, and that's really what it takes, and it's not for everyone. So right now I am all in on being Amanda from sales at Audience Plus.
All
But in
right.
the future, who knows? If it makes sense, right, to align myself with another brand, maybe I'd be interested. Crumble Cookies.
Yeah, Crumble Cookies, we help you get that deal. So
You
I
would
was
get that
just
deal.
I was just curious. To kind of walk back, I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about this,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of tech layoffs.
Oh yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I've never been impacted, but my company has done 2 mass layoffs, and
Oh
I know
gosh.
that with Chili Piper, were you caught up in one?
Caught up. Yes, I was a part of a reduction in force at Chili Piper, a company that I was at for nearly 4 years. Like rode that crescendo, went from
S
being the first BDR, first senior, first account executive leader. I 5x that team. All the things I
so
can run through all the credentials, but the
so
big question
so
is,
I wanna ask you a question because you talk about all of this hustle and this grind for these startups,
Yeah.
and there's so many people who are listening who are saying, "I've been there, and then I got laid off."
Yeah.
What is your advice to them? Because it seems that you just move forward and
Yeah.
you're just like on to the next. But
Yeah.
what do you
I
think?
would really take, well, depending on how long you were there, and also take inventory of, were you performing, things like that. Were you set up for success? That's another thing. That's something to consider, because it's, if there are the resources and if there's leadership where that is their job, it's not your fault if you were not set up for success,
Sure.
right? But also, if you weren't hitting your numbers, things like that, I mean, it is what it is. But um, take inventory of everything you learned also. Take
Yeah.
inventory of the L's you took. Take inventory of the things you contributed to the company outside of your role, right?
Mm,
If you were someone that was a pillar of culture there, someone that everyone knew, somebody that everyone could go to for help regardless, take inventory of that. Remember, that is something that is yours. And also, if you want to do it all over again, think of everything you learned and how valuable that is, right?
mm,
Because you rode that crescendo up, and it's unfortunate. A lot of things go into when a riff happens, but you also learned a lot from other people's mistakes too. And you saw things go down, and maybe you're not going to walk into your next place and come in with that forewarning, we did this here and it's going to be a failure here, but you can speak to experience that other people can't. And you learn a lot more through failure, or at least a feeling of failure, than you do in success.
mm. I agree. I think at the end of the day, you have to take all the experiences you had,
Totally.
be grateful,
Yeah.
be appreciative of the connections that you made, and it's just a lesson.
Yeah.
And you've improved, and now you can move on, and you're
Yeah.
smarter, and you're better, and
Yeah.
all those things. So,
I'd say, yeah, for reps, it's a lesson. For me, it was a journey. It was a journey of a lifetime. I made the best friends of my life. I got to go to some pretty sick places in the world, and I wouldn't trade it for anything at
yeah,
all. Like, I still have great relationship with my co-founders there, and I'm still rooting, right? Especially when you have equity, you want to see things go well. But when it first happens, it is difficult,
yeah,
right? If you put a good chunk of your life into it, and the numbers are there of what you contributed and the sweat equity and everything, it definitely feels terrible. But you just gotta keep going, right? And for me, I could have done a lot of things. I could have shuffled in, like I said, as a sales manager at a larger company, but I just woke up and I said, I want to do it all over again. And
mm,
I want to work for a founder who is building something that I'm inspired by, somebody who I'm not necessarily like familiar with on a personal basis, but somebody that I knew of and had a great reputation, and somebody that I always wanted to work for. And I'm super stoked because I got that guy's attention and I moved to Arizona to work for him.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and how are you liking Arizona?
It's great. I mean, ask me in June, I'll probably be like, I'm packing my bags. It is too high. But no, it's really great. And we have an office, which was another thing. It's like, when was the last time you went into an office to work, right? And it's really cool, even though there's only a few of us in there. It is a very different office. Like, we have a full studio, kind of like this set up. So it's definitely a different type of office than you would expect. But even right now, looking at it, knowing like this is kind of a blank slate, and when we get things going and I'm hiring sales reps and we're creating that energy of a sales floor that companies just kind of haven't had in a while, ever since COVID. So
Mhm.
I am loving Arizona. I'm loving the people I'm meeting and the people that we've managed to get to move out here. But it's awesome. You know, I think we also have a real opportunity here to develop a sales community that hasn't really existed.
Mm. Yeah, that's what we're trying to build
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this podcast and with Morgan and with Tom
Tom,
and
yeah, we've got a lineup here in the valley for
Keegan.
sure.
Yeah, we have quite a few people that we can bring together as a community and do events. So I'm excited for kind of what that is, and
Yeah.
obviously to have you involved, of
Oh yeah.
course.
I'm there.
Um,
I mean, Morgan and I used to pedal around Atlanta doing events out there. before all of this, right?
Yeah.
It was before the fedora, if you know Morgan Ingram. He's so
Yeah.
annoyed with
He
me that I
always would
always talk
rock
about
that.
this. Yeah. But he's also somebody that I always nod to of like I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for having you as a resource to learn
Yeah.
from and just being around the right people. I mean, it is true what they say. You are the average of the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
So it's important to always check in with not even like who do I surround myself with, but who am I keeping up with and who am I not keeping up with? Because if you are spending time communicating with people that maybe like aren't on the same path as you, maybe don't have the same values as you, don't have the same motivation as you, like maybe check and decide, do I really want to be, even if it's like small exchanges, right? It's not about not being associated with people, but definitely check in on the people that you're making an effort to be around.
Mm.
And Morgan, Brian Smith, I can think of a bunch of people when I was in Atlanta that inspired me and motivated me in my early days as a sales rep. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for that. So I'm excited for us to build a community out here. And we also have girls club here as well. So we'll be able to really have like diversity and everything.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so kind of transitioning to more like your just takes on in general.
Let's go.
So, are you doing outbound right now for Audience Plus?
Oh God, this is such a sensitive topic. We've get a good swing, but at the end of the day, I have to realize where my strengths are and where my weaknesses are. And the sales development game has changed so much. Some of these new platforms that are coming up, and I'm like, that's not real. It can really do that. Like, that sounds like magic, right? Not to name drop one of them, but we were talking about all this new SaaS that's coming out for sales dev and also AI and how that plays with everything. So I gave it a swing with Outbound, had success doing targeted outbound with personalized videos, but specifically from my founder, right? Because he
Yeah.
is, for the people that we sell to, he's a recognizable person. He's very influential. So having them come from Anthony was very powerful, right? And that worked for us to get some outbound pipeline when things kind of dried up. But right now we need to ramp up. And that's why I'm like, we got to hire someone. We got to bring someone in because we don't have time for me to try and figure this out.
Mm.
And to be honest, I loved my time as an SDR, top performing SDR, hitting the phone, but I don't want to learn how to do it. I want to continue like perfecting my craft at closing. Now, I'm not one of those AEs that are above sourcing their own pipeline by any means, but I'm just saying, especially for how fast we got to move, we got to get somebody in who knows what they're doing, who can lay down that foundation and whatever it is today, however y'all are doing outbound. And I know there's a lot of conversations going on about what's working and what isn't. How do you break through the noise? How does AI play with everything? So to answer your question, we're giving outbound a good swing, but we got to get the right person in to do it because I realize I'm just not that person.
What's the number one trait you want them to have that you feel will book the most meetings?
Well, creativity is important. The ability to build a system, because that is where we are right now. And especially for a sales development, BDR type of role, if we're going to start growing that team, we've got to have really solid processes in place. So, looking for somebody, and this is going to be someone who is a more senior BDR, somebody who has that experience, and ideally not somebody who's like, I want to be an AE in 3 months. It's like, nah, I need you to come in and do this. And this is an opportunity to grow and do sales development leadership, which can be really rare. I have a lot of respect for SDR managers, BDR managers, because I could never do it. And so obviously creativity, being able to lay down processes that don't exist. And obviously we're always going to say having that grit. Don't make me say to pick up the phone though, because we sell to marketers and marketers are answering the phone. All
I sell
right.
to marketers.
Yeah. You sell them. Are they answering? Ooh, I'm sorry. Are they answering the phone?
I sell influencer marketers.
Okay. See, that's different. We're selling to B2B marketers.
Yes.
I'm trying to talk
But
to directors of demand generation, and they're
but this
like,
is such a hot topic though,
yeah, are people
because
answering the phone?
well, because there's so many people who are like, don't do cold calls, a waste of time. And
Yeah.
I'm always been on the no, make the calls, make the calls, make
Yeah.
the calls, because that's how I'm having the most success. But I'm also like I'm a very different type of sales rep.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very direct. I sometimes, I've had people message me and said, "I'm only booking the meeting because you've been so relentless.
Mhm.
Like, you just won't let
Yeah,
me
you gotta
you
have that.
like."
Yeah.
And so I appreciate those compliments from my buyers, but at the same time, like, I haven't had as much success doing personalized video and stuff like you have. I just am like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, let's
Yeah.
let's talk. Like, let's get you a demo."
I think also it's important to empower your reps to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm really good at, and this is what I enjoy doing.
Okay.
Because if you're like, and this is here we go, hot take. I have a sales rep that's like dreads getting on the phone.
Yeah, what do you say to that?
They dread getting, it's a different time though, because we've got more outlets, different ways of getting into accounts now. Back in my day, it's true, it was the phone. It was the phone, it was emails, but it really was the phone back then. And I've been selling to B2B marketers for the majority of my career. So it if it's something I think that gives reps the ability to not necessarily pick and choose, right? We have to have structure, we have to have expectations, but if we all got a number to hit at the end of the month, why does it matter if you're getting it there in that path and I'm getting it there
Yeah,
in this path,
but
right?
but what do you say to all the tech companies right now, most of the big ones that set a 150 minimum cold call for every SDR a week, 150 minimum?
I would, geez, I mean, I'd one, look at that activity, right? Are they like, one, how many connects are they getting? That's a big thing,
Yeah,
right?
it's probably like less than 5%.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I don't know what I would say, man, because I'm not
You
saying
would
that cold calling is dead,
Yeah, but it
but
sounds like you wouldn't lead a team like that of like you have 150 cold calls a week, you have to do this, you have to do that.
gosh, come on, you're leading the witness, man. I would say it's what is like give us a period of time to test something out, right? And
Yeah.
also it depends on territories, right? Or even am I targeting mid market and everything like that? Who is look at the data, who is answering the phone, right?
Mm,
And who is getting the most connects? Double down on that, right? But I think I think people should strategically look at the data to understand what's working, but don't be afraid to experiment. Like right now, we're in experimental phase for sure, and in every way. Also in marketing and all of that, just be ready to experiment. Look at the data, not necessarily shut this down if it didn't have immediate success. So that, yeah, I don't know what I'd say to the companies that are forcing their reps to make 150 calls. If it's working, like, yeah, man,
sure.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So from a recap of today, you said, we talked about what it's like to be a woman in sales. We
yeah,
also talked about what it's like to work at a startup, some of the hustle culture that you've just embraced the
yeah,
grind.
yeah.
It's kind of the season you're in right now. You sent me a list of things. I probably missed some
No,
stuff.
you're good.
What else did I miss that you feel like the audience should really know?
Well, uh, Audience Plus is throwing our first industry conference on April 17th in
New
Brooklyn, New
York.
York.
New York. Promote
Yes.
that, and I'm so mad I
No,
can't
you're
make
totally
it.
fine. So, we are making a really big bet on doing an industry conference in our, well, second year of officially being in business, but also within the first year of us having a product that we're selling. And it's called Golden Hour. It's on April 17th in Brooklyn, New York. It's going to be like nothing that anyone has ever seen before by way of industry conferences, because I'm sure you've been to all the, to big ones, or where it's just you walk in, there's a vendor hall, there's terrible lighting, everyone's handing out swag, you have the box lunches, maybe that awkward happy hour, and really the connection or the spaces for people to connect and feel like they're part of something, you don't really get at those
Yeah, you
conferences.
don't.
You don't get it. And sure, they can be fun. I, as a sales rep, it's exhausting, right? Because you're tethered to a booth the whole time. So really what we're trying to do with Golden Hour is, one, give a new home to marketers, right? And have it be a space where connection and learning tangible and applicable type of strategies and techniques is part of it, but also the experience. So with Golden Hour, we're keeping it to 300 attendees. We have an incredible lineup of speakers. If you look at the website, we have the CMO of Salesforce. We have Brian Lieberman from Morning Brew. You want to talk about owned media, right? He started his newsletter and now he's got 7 million subscribers. So we've invited speakers from both B2B and B2C at this beautiful hotel in Brooklyn. And then at sunset, we are going to go to the rooftop, and Lindsay Sterling, who is this amazing violinist, dancer, performer, is going to perform as the sun dips below the New York skyline. So we're really excited about it. We're excited about the thought of this kind of being the jump off for our brand. And it is a huge bet we are making, but it's still not too late to get tickets. And we would love, if you are a marketer that wants to be inspired, we would love to have you at Golden Hour.
Sounds like a fun event, and wish I could make it.
I know. I'm bummed. I offered this guy a ticket, but he's gonna be, where are you gonna be, in Florida or something, or you're gonna be in New York the week before? Come on, just extend your trip, Will.
New York's expensive.
That's true. That's true.
I'll be there the 3rd through the 6th, and
Okay.
then I'm doing some stuff with Vin.
Nice. Nice. Talk about influencers and
With
everything.
Vin,
That's
we're
awesome.
gonna do a little collab, and we're gonna do a day in the life because he's all into the
He's
YouTube
all about,
videos.
I gotta know. So does he wake up, set up his camera, and then wake up?
I'm not
I'm not
sure.
talking Vin. I love the day in the life. I've always thought about doing it, but like logistically, who's filming me walking to my car if I'm by myself?
I've done one. Typically, it's a tripod,
Okay.
and
Duh, it's a tripod.
and
Duh.
you do a little B-roll clip, you
Yep.
cut it, you do a voiceover,
It's not that hard.
and
I
it
get
works
it. It's not
out.
that hard. It's not
It
that hard.
works
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when I'll be in New York. Excited to collab with Vin,
That's
and then
fun.
also I'm meeting a tech founder out there. I'm a advisor for a tech company called Twain.
Okay.
So I've helped them kind of develop that product,
Yeah.
and
That's so cool.
so we're doing a whole event in New York with the whole team,
That's
and at
awesome.
Sequoia's office.
Oh, yeah, Sequoia, no big deal. Nice. That'll be awesome. Speaking of podcasts, Sequoia has this podcast. It's called Crucible Moments, and it is so good. I encourage everyone to watch it, but specifically if you work in startups, the Crucible Moment podcast by Sequoia is so powerful to listen to, because it's not just taking the story from the founders of these companies. Like Nvidia is on it, HubSpot is on it, Eventbrite, Airbnb. It's not just taking the stories from the founders, but also the people that were around them. So the investors speak on it, board members, first sales reps speak on it. So when I listen to Crucible Moments, I always think of, if this were to be something that I'm a part of in 5-10 years, like at this point in the company, when we were truly in a crucible moment, which at Audience Plus we have seen in the 6 months that I've been here, what if it cut to Amanda from sales, what would she say at that moment? I always think of like, what would I say? Or what am I saying right now? So that's also, I love listening to that podcast because it makes me think like it is inspiring, because these founders have seen through such incredible success, but also just failure, that how did they come back from that? So speaking of Sequoia, I just plugged their pod, but it's really good. I highly suggest you to listen to it. It's really
I'll
good.
have to check it out. All right,
Yeah.
Amanda. So where can people find you,
Where can they find me?
and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, well, where you can find me today, Scottsdale, Arizona, most of the time downtown Phoenix at the Audience Plus headquarters. I'm very active on LinkedIn if you want to check out some of my cringy content. It's not super cringy.
No, I like it.
I know. I've gotten a lot of great feedback on it, but you want to check out my content, kind of see what we're doing. Amanda Bagley with Audience Plus on LinkedIn. And then I'm on the gram. Nothing too crazy, just like my life. And
You gonna
that
drop the
is
handle or?
at Amanda Lucy Bagley on the gram. So and I'm also on Twitter. I haven't really figured out Twitter. I've been super consistent with it, but my Twitter handle is Amanda Owns It.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
nice. Cool. Well, I also give every guest a golf ball.
All
Just like,
right, all right. So I can go play golf with the sales bros.
yeah. I mean, we could hit the
Oh my gosh,
range.
I love
It's branded, so
this.
it's the official
That's
guest of
awesome.
the.
And the Arizona flag. This means a lot to me, man. I made the move out here to work for Audience Plus, and the people I've met and just, the welcome I've had has been so warm, not to be super punny.
Yes, it's very
It's
hot in
amazing. I've had
Arizona.
such a warm welcome. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you so
Well,
much for having
you're
me.
welcome. Episode 11 of the Sell That SaaS podcast is in the books with Amanda Bagley. You guys know where to find her. Connect with her on LinkedIn, Insta, maybe even Twitter.
Yeah.
For me, guys, please, if you can, rate this podcast. We have a lot of listeners, but we don't have a lot of ratings yet. If you like this podcast, it would help me immensely if you could rate it. If you're seeing this on YouTube, there's a lot of you who watch the video but aren't subscribed. So if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel and smash that like button, it'd mean a lot to the Sell That
Smash the
SaaS
like.
brand. And by the way, TikTok might get banned. So that's where a lot of people
That's
know
it.
me.
We're losing the platform. That's why you got to own your audience, guys.
You got to own your audience.
Yeah.
Because that's where I blew up on, and now I'm transitioning. So subscribe to the YouTube, Insta, and Spotify podcast. Everything is Sell That SaaS. Thank you, guys. I'm your host, Will Padilla. Join us we're doing bi-weekly episodes. So join us every 2 weeks on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, and we'll see you then.